So Ted Cruz comes on making fun of the idea of student debt forgiveness, and basically bringing up the trope of someone's smoking weed at his mom's.
Yeah, the dumb barista. If the dumb barista could get off the bong for a second,
Yeah. Which
something like that.
Maybe there's somebody out there that fits that description. I'm sure there is. And then what Bernie Sanders did is he took this video and he had a contrasting video to it where he's at like this town hall for nurses or something, and he's letting all these nurses tell their stories about how they're working 473,000 hours a week, and they have more debt than they could pay off. And
okay, I have it. I have it. Let's
let's just play the thing. Go ahead and share your screen.
Or that slacker barista.
Nurse at Temple, and as part of our contract, like our build up to our contract campaign, we polled our members about their student debt because we're going to be demanding that the employer also offset the debt, right? And so 120 of our members had a total of $7 million in nursing debt, in student debt.
These are nurses?
Yeah, these are nurses. And you have to have a college degree to be a nurse, and we're struggling in the hospital.
All right.
We need more nurses.
Who wasted 7 years in college studying completely useless things, now has loans and can't get a job. Joe Biden just gave you 20 grand.
I have like $88,000 of debt that's just increased year after year.
That increases
yeah, because
interest rates?
They're all federal loans.
Yeah.
Some of them have 6-7% interest. I mean, we put off buying a house. I'm in my 30s, put off buying a house, put off getting married for a while. Don't know if we can have kids because student debt is, it's just overwhelming. And now as a union organizer, I'm explicitly excluded from the public service loan forgiveness program.
Like, holy cow, 20 grand. That, maybe you weren't going to vote in November and suddenly you just got 20 grand. And, if you can, get off the bong for a minute and head down to the voting station, or just send in your mail-in ballot that the Democrats have helpfully sent you, it could drive up turnout, particularly among young people.
My student loan payments every month are double my rent. About $1,100.
You pay $1,100 every month for student debt.
And I refinanced, yeah.
What does that mean in terms of your financial situation in your life?
I'm working 2 jobs now, and that's going to be my future for a while.
So vote for Bernie Sanders. No, that's not what we're saying. But I think this is an excellent video of they're both right and they're both wrong. I think Ted Cruz is absolutely right that this is just here's some money, vote for me, from Joe Biden, because I don't think he's going to actually give him the money, and that there are perverse incentives at the idea of, okay, you took on this whole debt and we're just going to forgive it. However, on the flip side, I think Bernie Sanders is right that this is he did say this specifically. He's trying to demonstrate it, right? That, okay, here's very hardworking people of society, supposedly these nurses, that they can't buy a house, they can't have kids because they have these restrictive loans, these student loans that prevent them from doing that. And, okay, so it turns into this left-right slog out. But again, once you understand the monetary system and you say, okay, this is just money, it's already been extended, and to forgive it, you just flick a switch, and that things aren't on a level playing field, like you said, in terms of the free market. There is a top-down system where money is created, and and it's not a meritocracy. It's a violent top-down system that goes back ages, and it was never about meritocracy. The meritocracy is for the little playground that is the free market economy. But the parameters surrounding it, the parameters that created it, were all conquest, domination, weaponry, hierarchy, etc. Yes. So, again,
by the way, so number one, Bernie Sanders is such a sellout that I don't, like you said, I don't believe a word that I don't believe he gives a shit about any of these people that he's talking to there. He's put there to put some people at ease, maybe. But
Just make sure you vote for Hillary Clinton after he loses.
Yeah. And make sure you donate to his campaign so all the money can go to Joe Biden and whoever else. And then he's not going to do anything about it. He's going to fuck you over and pretend like it never happened. I mean, it's disgusting. But
so I don't know how well we've made a conservative argument for student debt relief, but I do want to emphasize the point that I don't think this is a conservative and progressive issue, because again, once you understand how the money system works, and this is probably the same for goddamn almost every issue that there is, right? Is that there's the way that it's been painted, which is completely inaccurate from reality, which is what we end up fighting over, or what we're supposed to fight over, and then there's the way it actually works, which is the way that the oligarchs either hide or obfuscate in some way. And they say, okay, while they're fighting over this, we can make that happen, and they're not going to notice because they don't understand how to look at it correctly. And so I think this is an up-down issue, not a right-left issue.
Yeah, there is a hierarchy of information to be generous. It's probably more like a hierarchy of disinformation that works 24/7 to make sure that you don't get the information, you, Julie, and whoever else, that you don't get the information that will be helpful for you to make better decisions down the road. And just knowing that fact will already open so many doors to you. Just having that skepticism towards the stories you're told, and especially the stories you're told by the people you trust the most and the people you trust most unquestioningly. Having that idea that maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should question precisely the people who seem the most trustworthy to me right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should question precisely the things that I've never, ever questioned and that I've been told to never question, because what I'm currently doing doesn't seem to be helping me very much. What I'm currently doing, it doesn't seem to be working very well. And none of it makes sense to me. It's all very confusing. Well, that means that they're doing a good job at keeping people down.
And they've been doing a good job for a long time. We just talked about ancient Sumeria and how they more or less did the same thing that they're doing now. Anyway, Nima, you got anything else to add to that?
I'm sure I do.
Oh, yeah, well, he's reaching for the book. Everybody run away. No, what was it? Now that you do reach for the book, and I'm flipping it around, is there anything else on the idea of debt in general to bring up? Because I think simply the point that in general, debt has been used as a method of slavery.
Yeah. So one more thing about the inflation argument about student debt relief is inflationary because all these students can go out and spend like wild. Well, on the other hand, there's going to be a bank that has to write down the debt that's canceled. They can't earn interest on the debt that's canceled. That's actually a deflationary event. So let's say I give you the inflationists, let's say I give you maybe there's some inflation from the spending that comes from the individual who now has money freed up. But I also match you the write-downs that the banks have to make in order to address the jubilee of all the student loans. At the end of the day, it's not going to matter all that much. It's not what this is about. It's not going to be inflation or deflationary. The two cancel each other out to some extent. But what does matter, to us at least, is that there's more money in the private sector that can go to real businesses and real everything, real workers, real businessmen, real farmers, real anything really, versus it disappearing on some federal government balance sheet where it's not needed anyway, because the government can create the money that it spends. And if that's new to you, obviously go back to one of the dozens of shows where we talk about modern monetary theory, MMT, and that is the symbol for freedom, right? It's the Sumerian.
This is Amagi that I got pulled up. It's some ancient cuneiform, and I bring it up because not only did I get this from Carol Quigley, David Graeber mentions it in his book in a way that Carol Quigley doesn't. So this is the oldest written known word for freedom, and David Graeber points out that this is specifically freedom from debt.
Yeah.
The oldest known word for freedom that we have access to specifically denotes freedom from debt. Now, and this totally makes sense because in ancient Sumeria, where you regularly needed debt jubilees because so much of the population became debt slaves, that you would need a word like this.
Right.
And I think we're in a situation where we need a word like this again.
Yeah. Freedom from debt, that's what the word originally meant. That's exactly it. And it also seems like they really like trumpets, the Sumerians, because the entire cuneiform looks like different arrangements of trumpets, basically, to me.
Do you know why that's the case?
Because that's how you carve, right? That's
the shape of the reed. That's the shape of the reed that they would stamp it with.
The shape of a trumpet.
No, I mean, you know what I mean? Like a reed, that comes out of the water. It's a plant that comes out of the water. Yeah. It does look like a trumpet. I agree. Yeah. And then I want to show it again because I think I had my camera up while that was happening. There it is. Amagi, freedom from slavery, specifically
freedom from debt.
Freedom from debt and therefore freedom from the slavery.
Well, I mean, I think maybe it's not a bad idea to just end with that lengthy
Go for it.
Ending of Graeber's book. So this is once again David Graeber. May he rest in peace. Dead the first 5,000 years. This is the ending of his book, basically, right before the afterword begins, I guess. In this book, I have largely avoided making concrete proposals, but let me end with one. It seems to me that we are long overdue for some kind of biblical-style jubilee, one that would affect both international debt and consumer debt. It would be salutary, not just because it would relieve so much genuine human suffering, but also because it would be our way of reminding ourselves that money is not ineffable, that paying one's debts is not the essence of morality, that all these things are human arrangements, and that if democracy is to mean anything, it is the ability to all agree to arrange things in a different way. It is significant, I think, that since Hammurabi, great imperial states have almost invariably resisted this kind of politics. Athens and Rome established the paradigm even when confronted with continual debt crises. They insisted on legislating around the edges, softening the impact, eliminating obvious abuses like debt slavery, using the spoils of empire to throw all sorts of extra benefits at their poorer citizens, who after all provided the rank and file of their armies, so as to keep them more or less afloat. But all in such a way as never to allow a challenge to the principle of debt itself. The governing class of the United States seems to have taken a remarkably similar approach, eliminating the worst abuses, e.g. debtors' prisons, using the fruits of empire to provide subsidies, visible and otherwise, to the bulk of the population. In more recent years, manipulating currency rates to flood our country with cheap goods from China, but never allowing anyone to question the sacred principle that we must all pay our debts. At this point, however, the principle has been exposed as a flagrant lie. As it turns out, we don't all have to pay our debts. Only some of us do. Nothing would be more important than to wipe the slate clean for everyone, mark a break with our accustomed morality, and start again. What is a debt anyway? A debt is just a perversion of a promise. It is a promise corrupted by both math and violence. If freedom, real freedom, is the ability to make friends, then it is also necessarily the ability to make real promises. What sorts of promises might genuinely free men and women make to one another? At this point, we can't even say. It's more a question of how we can get to a place that will allow us to find out. And the first step in that journey in turn is to accept that in the largest scheme of things, just as no one has the right to tell us our true value, no one has the right to tell us what we truly owe.
If everybody who's watching this now or recording could like, share, and subscribe it helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
I hate saying it, but it's just true.